Hello, welcome to Win Some Loose More. My name is Dieter Loosemore. I'm joined by Rick Loosemore for Too Loose. This is the top 50, and we're into 2211.
And I think, well, do you remember we said in the 50 to 40, I think it was, that they just work. That's how you define these games. They just work.
Yeah.
And almost last time, for me at least, it was games that were better than they should be. Lost Cities, Fields of Green, no thanks, like
Sure.
better than some of their parts. When I was putting this list together, my heart sank as I put so many of them on the list. And I gave them a little title next to my Excel sheet that said, games that I love but don't get to play. It's not totally true, but the lot of them were just like, oh, I wish I played that. I wish I played that. I love that one too, but I don't get to play it.
I'm calling one definite crossover within list. I don't know about number.
Okay,
I think two, but that's because I don't remember where it was last year.
I can think of one.
Okay, then just the one then, because you would know if there was the second.
Okay, no, maybe two.
Number 20.
Ooh, my number 20.
Yeah,
might be a crossover, but there might be. Century Spice Road.
Wait for it.
Yeah, knew it. So two, I reckon.
There are two. There are two.
There are two. Sure. Okay. What's your number 20?
My number 20 is heartbreaking. This was a number 2 game for a while. Last year, it dropped to 12. It is now number 20. This is the 7th Continent.
Oh, that is a shame.
It is a shame.
I've never played this, yeah.
No, and I do have the 7th Citadel coming whenever that comes in another year or two. And I think that might solve some of my issues, which is why I'm getting it. This is a cooperative exploration game with like a skill check type mechanism, like you find in like dungeon crawl type things, but it's across a massive island. And if you laid all the cards out, they've literally created a continent for you to explore. It's incredible. And the narrative exists, but you don't have to follow it. You can go off and just die because you just suddenly discover this beastie and whatnot. So it's really clever, and you're flipping cards and you're building up your tableau of tools, and it's a survival game, and that is double-edged. It's really cool. It's fascinating, but it's also a bit grindy, and you're slogging through sometimes. And I will be honest, I cheat the heck out of it. Not in terms of succeeding the checks. I still want to see that, but if you run through the draw deck once, then if you go through again and pull out curse cards, you lose, you die.
Right.
There is an item that comes in, or a card that comes in the box, that you can say, I get to extend that by another time through the deck.
Yes.
If I'm not very far, fine, I'll let myself die. If I've been playing this game, because you can save it, there's ways of putting the cards back in a particular way in the box so that you can just pull out and pick up where you were. If I'm however long through one of these stories and I just get screwed up, I don't want to start again. I just don't. Yeah. It's too much time I've invested. So I'll just use that item again. And I know that's cheating and defeats the jeopardy of the game, but I'm so far in the story that I want to see where the story goes. Sure. And so there's less of a survival aspect apparently in 7th Citadel. So we'll see if that addresses it. But it just slowly by slowly, it's just getting played less and less. It's just less new and exciting to me. Still great, still number 20, still an incredibly mechanically rich game, and I'm so glad they brought it to retail. Even though they said they couldn't, they pared it down a little bit and made retail versions. So I'm really pleased that it's far more accessible than available than it was before. As I say, still number 20, but 7th Continent has slipped. It's great.
Well, here's another one that slipped. Last year, I couldn't believe it didn't make my top 3. This year, it's fallen from 4 to 19. Is Viticulture.
Okay.
And sort of fits into the category. I know, sort of fits into the category of games I love but don't get to play. But some of this is actually self-inflicted because it's a bit like when I talked about Raiders in the last video.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Viticulture and I really like what it does. But there's a couple of other games coming up quite soon that made me go, I'm just going to lean that way. Just going to lean that way. And I've found that it's not that I don't get to play Viticulture at the moment. It's just that I haven't played Viticulture at the moment.
Sure.
And I think that says something that I just go, I'll go over there instead. It's not leaving my collection. It's not going anywhere. I still absolutely love it. And it was a real shock to me that it wasn't in the top 10. But the more I looked, I went, that's where it lies at the moment. If it comes back, I wouldn't be surprised.
Sure.
I think I would be surprised if it dropped much further than this.
Right.
Because I really like it. If you don't know the game, sorry. It's a worker placement game. You're making wine, you're growing grapes, you are harvesting those grapes, you're fulfilling orders, fairly standard worker placement, resource management, goal motivated stuff. Some people have an issue with the randomness of some of the chance cards. I've got an expansion that fixes some of that. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the new expansion for this is going to be. I've got the Tuscany board, which makes it much bigger and is just an absolute must for me because the whole thing takes place over spring, summer, winter, autumn, and you get to use one set of workers for all of those seasons. And in the base game, you only play summer and winter, and spring and autumn, just something else happens. In Tuscany, you get to do all of those things, the Tuscany expansion. So I really like it. Really, 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 really like it. Just haven't played it so much recently. Number 19, Viticulture.
My number 19 won't be a crossover yet, I believe. This is the best game I've only played once. Captain Sonar.
Yeah, okay, yeah, keep going.
Absolutely amazing experience. I know.
Yeah.
The next one is our crossover.
Okay.
It's so good. It's
good.
ridiculously manic. Your heart rate will never get higher in games. It's a real-time 6 to 8 player. Go for 8 player if you can. Real-time game of shouting. You're playing. It's battleships.
Whispering, shouting.
I don't think we whispered once,
Yeah.
except my mum pouring at my shoulder. It's going to be the same story every time because I've still only played it once, and it's still number 19 because it's still possibly my favorite experience gaming ever. It's an absolute blast. Everybody has a different role. You got the radio engineer listening into the opposite team's captain. You got the captain who's directing the ship. The radio engineer is listening to the direction so they can try and guess where they are on this map. Captain is navigating their own map. The engineer is making sure things don't fall apart and that the systems are all ready to go. Sometimes you have to break and try and fix everything together. I don't even know what the first mate does because everyone's just shouting, passing orders around, doing something else. Together. Mad, absolutely mental, single box of shouting fun. I don't like frantic games, but it's just structured so well and the roles are so clearly defined, and it's definitely a game with good design that you just go with it, and it's so much fun. Captain Sonar number 19, up 7 places for no reason. It's just great.
Yeah. Okay, number 18 for me is a game that I don't get to play, and this time last year I owned it. Now I don't own it because my wife did not love it, but I love it. Roll for the Galaxy. You talked about Race for the Galaxy in the last video and told me, I might like Terraform Mars. I actually don't like the follow mechanic that much.
Okay.
I liked it a lot more in a dice form than I did a card form because there's that element of chance. And I think, what was it, Burgundy you were talking about, maybe or something else, the strategic dice use, or Dice Masters or something you were saying like that. You just get left with the dice that you get. There's just so many ways of modding the results, and I spend that dice as this, but I'll get that dice later. So it's an engine builder, it's a dice chucker, it's a follow mechanic, it's a bland theme. and I really, really like it, but it just hasn't stayed in my collection. So if you're out there and you know me and you want to play Roll for the Galaxy, I am there any day of the week because I love it.
My number 18 is, I think, in the same similar category to Roll for the Galaxy, in that I know you used to have it. I'm not sure if you still do. I know you and I liked it much more. I think this is our other crossover. We've spoken about games like it.
Where was this last year?
11. So same 10, dropped 7 places, but just from the shake up.
I think we gambled on this last year, actually.
I think we did. I think you're right.
Then I think we're right.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Okay. 17.
Let's move on. Number 17. 17 will not be a crossover yet. Paladins of the West Kingdom. Paladins of the West Kingdom is one of the games that bumps Raiders and bumps Viticulture just down that little bit because it's great worker placement. It's magic worker placement. It's crunchy worker placement. It's simple in a way. And you were talking before about Viscounts of the West Kingdom that is actually a harder teach, even though it's possibly a simpler game. This is quite simple to teach. You need those things to do that thing. Oh, okay, fine. But the way it interacts with itself, and oh my goodness, I have still not got over the fact that you draw the top 3 cards, put one to the bottom that you'll never use, put one to the top that you use next time, and one that you use right now, and it has a special power, and that's just your first half a turn, and it's amazing. But there's just so many routes to victory, and I don't get to play this one either, because even though it's really good at 2 and possibly even best at 2, I think.
Yeah,
maybe
I'd
3.
go with that.
Yeah,
2 or 3. Yeah,
we've had a baby in the summer, so the times where we say, "Hey, let's sit down and play a meaty game," that we both really like, it's just been squeezed out. So once again, a game that I love, don't get to play so much. So I think fallen 13 to 17, not a huge amount.
Same thing, yeah.
But yeah, it's really, really crunchy, really good.
My number 17, if I had gone by my rolling document, would have been a crossover last time.
Okay.
This is the last game you and I played together. The Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Okay, fine, yes.
New to us both, new to the list. We picked it up within a week of each other, I think.
Yes.
Oh, you ordered it first, but then I ordered it and got it first. It was very funny. But that's just a brother thing. It's really good.
Yeah.
Like we'd both played it solo and been like, yeah, I see that. It works. It does these things. Played it all together. Yeah. It does all those things and more. It's got that wonderful combination, which I'll talk about at the top of this list, actually, of that. It's got as much theme as you want in it. Yes. And I don't mean, what I mean by that is, if you're entirely mechanically minded, it's a mechanically solid game and you can play and have a great time thinking of it that way. Yes. If you are thematically minded, it's really there. And if you want to mine out every last inch of it, there's lots to get from it. All the text makes sense. How the machete allows you to go to this place and do this thing. You're like, well, yeah, I get that. It kind of would allow me to do the thing that card power gives me. It makes sense. If you want it to be a bit more mystically and Temple of Doomy, you can do that as well. If you want it to be Dora the Explorer, you can do that with it. It's such a flexible, solid design, both mechanically and thematically, that it just works really well. And again, that slow deck building that's come up time and time again, and what we believe our crossover has it as well. It just seems to work. It came out at the same time as a couple other crosses between deck building and worker placement. And the reason I think this one sings best for me is because it doesn't feel like either. It feels like a card-driven action selection game, which is my jam.
Yes. Yes.
As we've said many times.
Yes.
And it just so happens that the worker placement is an element of it, that you put your person there, but it's only to do the other thing, which allows you to do the other thing.
Absolutely. And this is what I forgot to say and I was thinking about earlier, is it's not a splice between a Tableau builder and a worker placement. I'm looking at you, Everdell. You are way down on my list. I know everyone loves you, but I am now the one for me. It's inherent in the card use.
Yeah.
And it's still just a deck builder, but the outworking of how that card works, it makes sense. It's not just like, oh, we've got this mechanic and we've got that mechanic, and they're both in the game. They have no relationship to one another. It's great. Do you know what we also haven't talked about? Production value and art.
Surprisingly amazing for CGE.
Very pretty.
Very pretty. Like, they don't do bad production CG at all.
No.
But it's like, it's good stuff.
Yeah,
quality stuff.
The board is stunning.
It is.
Yeah. It's good. Excellent choice. What was that, 17?
17.
Right, 16 then. A new one for me.
Oh.
And a fader for you is Underwater Cities.
What did I have? 23 to 16.
Yeah,
it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
It's not bad. It's good, is what it is. And I've got I think we talked a lot about it last year. The rule of, do you buy an expansion before you've played the base game? And there are a couple of those that break that rule. And actually, one that we might talk about just shortly. This is one that I actually bought the expansion before I owned the main game, partly because the main game was out of print in the UK and I had to import it at the time. But the expansion just makes the whole thing much more aesthetically and tactility of the thing is much more appealing. Because it's got recessed boards, because it's got some expansion bits that just really help it become a bit asymmetric and sort of help you learn the game and speed the thing up. And it's great. And it didn't start high for me, actually. It's only on repeated plays that I've gone, I really am starting to get to the grips with the way that it's a worker placement. And in fact, we've just slammed Everdell, haven't we? And rightly so, because it's a card game and a worker placement at the same time. But we were saying that with Lost Ruins, they are implicit with one another. The same is true with Underwater Cities. You are placing
game.
You're putting a worker down. It's the weirdest looking worker you've ever seen in your life, but you're putting a worker down, and then if you can, you also get to do the card. And there's just a puzzle that makes your mind burst with possibilities and frustrations that you haven't managed to do it. But then there's cards that allow you to sort of break that rule a little bit, and it's really smart, and it's got a theme that I enjoy. There's a game that will come up in the next list that talks about this sort of like populating beyond the Earth kind of thing, and I think it ticks loads and loads of my boxes, and I can see this climbing. Actually, I'm interested why it fell for you, but I could see it climbing for me. But it doesn't hit the table as much as I'd like. Again, this list, games that I love, don't get to play. So I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it on my table more. We'll see.
Cool. My 16 is the highest game I don't own, but is on the same list as Lost Cities in that I miss this and would like to get it again potentially. This is board presence in a box. This is a game called Santorini. No. This is Santorini.
Still haven't played this. I still haven't played this.
Both are just our brother owns it. Maybe our parents do. I don't know.
Yeah.
Which I'm surprised. I didn't think it was his kind of thing at all. I didn't think it was our dad's thing, but they will just happily sit and play each other. It's a 3D abstract game where all you do is you move one of your two pieces on this grid board one space, usually. And then somewhere around it, you place a level of building. up to the fourth, and the fourth is a little blue dome, such as they have in Santorini. If you look at Google images, it looks like the game, or the game looks like the place. The place came first, of course.
Like the North Sea.
And you're trying to get to the top of a building before a dome goes on. Why? Who knows? Is that a thing they do in that town? Who knows? But it's just a really no, yeah, maybe there's just people stood under domes being like, I made it. It's just a lot of fun. And then if you want to spice it up, there's a whole deck of asymmetric powers that you can have. That just suddenly mix up the game even more, and you get to do something the other person, again, it's got that beautiful thing of it feels like the other person's power is better than yours, and so you're like, okay, so now I have to leverage this, whilst they're sat there going, oh, their power's so much better than mine, I need to figure out this. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful production. Simple game, but super engaging. You just want to play it over and over again. It's a classic, and it feels like a classic. I know it's still relatively new, but beautiful, beautiful game. Santorini, number 16, up 3 places, so about the same.
My number 15, which is up 1, so basically the same as last year, Architects of the West Kingdom. So this is actually swapped places with Paladins. So last year Paladins was higher and Architects was lower, and that's swapped over again. And yes, some of that has to do with just playtime. And Paladins rather is a more refined system. But Architects has still got some really interesting worker placement twists. Again, we talk about Shem Phillips going, worker placement, how can I ruin that for you? How can I twist that for you? Well, in this, you just put a worker out and he gets a piece of wood if you go to the forest, or a piece of stone if you go to the quarry. And then you put a second worker out. And that person then suddenly gets, if you go to the same place, 2 sticks if you go to the forest, or 2 stones if you went to the quarry. And it's cumulative and cumulative. So eventually you put 1 worker out and you get 5 stones because you've got 5 people at the quarry, which is great. But then everyone starts looking around and going, you get 5 stones every time you go there. Do you know what? I'm going to arrest you on false pretenses. Who knows why you arrest them? But you arrest them and you put them on your player board. And then you take them to the prison and you get money for arresting people. And then you have to go to the prison to get them back. But actually, do you know what? You secretly want them to go into prison because otherwise there's no way of getting those workers back. Are you going to arrest yourself? No, because you don't make any money that way. That's crazy talk. And I think the thing that just pips it above Paladins. Yes, Paladins is slightly cleaner in its design. Architect has more character, has more heart.
Sure.
Because you have a player board with a character, and I always play the advanced rules. It's how I learn the game. I don't think it's advanced at all. Don't hear what I'm not saying. It's an advanced game. Don't play this with anyone. But the advanced rules are just as easy or hard as the basic rules. But you get a character who has a virtue level. And I forgot to mention in this, if you're of a low virtue, you can't contribute to the building of the cathedral, because this is Architects, by the way. You're building buildings to get points. But if you are of a low virtue, you get to go to the black market and make resources hand over fist. But every time you do, your virtue drops even more, and so it goes on. But if you're so virtuous, you wouldn't possibly be seen in the black market. So maybe you want to rob the tax stand a little bit and drop that so you can go to the black market now and again. So you've got this whole thing, and you've got story going on, and you've got relationship with your character that you don't have in Paladins, because you've got red, black, and blue tracks, which are strength and faith
and power.
Who cares? You go up on the blue and the black and the red. It's much more abstracted. And so when I'm teaching people, and again, that's how I like to play games a lot of the time, play newer people a lot of the time, this plays up 3 to 5 players quite nicely. Paladins really only 2, maybe 3. I think it just drifts into that playtime and that little bit more character. Anyway, they're both great. 15 and 17. Obviously, I like the West Kingdom.
Obviously. My number 15 is our first official, now we can announce it, crossover, the Century Spice Road.
Oh, yes, fine. From my 20.
From your 20, my 15, Century Spice Road, down 2 places. Yeah, comes out in the wash.
Up 4 for me.
It's grand. Why?
Yeah.
I've spoken about it a lot. Why? How is it up here for you from what, 3 plays?
Yeah, no, I've played it more than that. I've played it in
Okay.
games cafes and things like that as well, and I've played it UK Games Expo, and
Sure.
do you know what? That's kind of it. You can just play it in 30 minutes or so, and it's got a really nice central mechanic of play a card, play a card, play a card, or pick up your cards. There's no automatic, oh, I've run out of my deck, so I need to shuffle around. There's no play a card, pick up a card to easily recycle. You're always battling with yourself when to reset, when to add new cards in, when to make the most of those. The theme, we've talked about it before. Yellow cubes turn into brown cubes, turn into, again, who cares? It's a bit like Paladins of the West Kingdom in that, just cubes. But there's engine building, but there's just not push your luck almost, but push how far you can push something. Which I guess is push your luck. I don't know, but and it's simple and it plays well. And I don't have it in my collection, and I'd like to. It's always probably just a little bit more money than I want to spend on it, because I know it's got metal coins. I know it comes with those cups and stuff, but really it's just a card game. So I'd like to spend less than 20 quid on it probably.
Sure.
So it never quite feels like I want to spend the money on it, but I think about it and I go, it's a great game and I'd like to play it tomorrow.
It's one of my favorite games to teach new people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because they sit down and go, oh, it looks a bit dry. It looks a bit, is it going to be hard? And you go, you've got 4 things you can do. That's it. Pick up a card, play a card, pay for a card, pick up all your cards. That's the whole game.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, I can do those things.
Yeah.
And then it's got my preferred version of complexity and depth of that's super easy. And 3, 4, 5 turns into the game, they have just through the natural process of the game growing on you go, oh, actually, I want to do this now. Actually, I want to go for this thing here. Actually, and the choices kind of present themselves and invite people into thinking deeper about the choices. But the simplicity of the action is still incredibly, incredibly simple. One of those 4 things. That's it. And one of them is literally done. No choice made. Just pick up your cards. Super easy. And the production, as you say, is lovely for what it is. It doesn't need to be that good. It would possibly be less of a game if it wasn't that good, but it doesn't need to be. So it just gels together nicely. Your 20, my 15.
Yeah. All right, my number 14 is our other crossover.
Oh. Yes.
Great Western Trail.
Great Western Trail. My 18, your 14. Now this almost broke that rule for me. I had played it once when I bought the expansion.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I owned it last year. I don't own it now. I've pre-ordered the 2nd edition. I'm hoping it stays in my collection because, again, this list, games that I love, don't get to play. It was just so dry for my wife. It was, and deserty dry, but palette-wise, and maybe some shady ethics with Indians or Native Americans, or who knows what's is it a bit weird? And they've stripped all that out and they've prettified it and they've got new components, and I'm really hoping that the 2nd edition means we get to keep it in our collection and play it because I really like it. And you have a go at describing how the game works again, because
it's a slow deck builder.
Yeah.
And actually, I didn't appreciate the deck building element until the 2nd or 3rd play of how important that is, because that is how you win the game.
Yeah.
But you
take house to market.
Yeah, it's a slow deck builder taking place on a long rondelle. So normally a rondelle is like 4 to 10 actions. You just go round and round and round. You can never go backwards. This is a track. I was going to say pilgrimage. That's not the word I'm looking for. Whatever the word is.
No one goes on a pilgrimage to Kansas City. Maybe Dorothy.
The Great Western Trail. And you can go forward up to 3 spaces but each space is something that you could do. And there are buildings, and they start out with very few places to go. And you can do things as you go along to build more buildings, more places. And if somebody lands on yours, again, that benefits you, but it might be the thing that they want to do, or you can trade with the Native Americans, or you can go to market and buy more cows, which are worth more, because when you turn in your hand at the end of one trip round the trail, you can't have duplicates in what you sell. People like variety, and so it's really hard to score high hands, and how much you can score tells you how far along the track you can send these cows, but that's limited by your train and how far that's going. So you need to get station master, blah, 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 blah. Layers upon layers. So good though. It all works really well. It's a bit of a steep curve, but once you've got it, and that's done, and it blossoms.
Yeah, it's just bizarre, isn't it? Because even listening to you describing it, it sounds really dry and really dull.
I mean, that's because I'm mechanically minded.
No, but it's not. It's because it's like, oh, who cares about the station master? Who cares about and why did Kansas people have to be so picky about eating 4 different types of beef? It shouldn't be as gripping as it is.
Yeah,
but each little step on that route, or big step, or how far you want to go, is its own world of decision.
My number 14 has consistently stuck around from last year. Got it early-ish last year, and it's just been a consistent. It's up 2 places, but that's just because of the reshuffle. I played this just before I moved up north with some friends that hadn't played it before, and it's just a great time. This is the Quacks of Quedlinburg, a true push your luck game. It's just a lot of fun. There's 4 different versions of each what's the word, resource I'm looking for, that go into your bag that you can buy. So each game is slightly different. I've got one of the expansions that makes it up even more. So always the same chips are in the game, but they can mean different things, as I said. And as you go on, you're trying to brew a potion. No one really cares about the theme in this. It's just silly fun again. And like the deck builder we've spoken about before, and the bag builder that we've spoken about, this is very much that you're purchasing tokens to go in your bag, because white tokens that you start with are bad. And once you accrue a certain number of those that you've pulled, your pot explodes. So you need to stop before then to be able to get the best things out of it. So you're buying colored chips, which do different things. Like orange ones will do different things to black ones, to yellow ones, to green ones, to red ones. They'll all score or give you an ability in different ways at a different level, because you can buy big ones and little ones, whatever. And so it's just this fun of pulling it out, really pushing you, like, oh, if I get, because there's a level 3, a 2 level 2s and 3 level 1s of the white. And if you get a total of 7, you're bad.
Wow.
But then in one of the games, one of the yellows lets you put one of the whites back when you draw it. So you get to try it again. And so there's just these little decisions that just have a lot of fun. And it's also slightly cleverer than you appreciate the first time. So like I mentioned with Tiny Towns a couple of videos ago, most people that play this have a great time the first time, more so than Tiny Towns for sure, but also go, oh, okay, I want to go after these things. I want to do this differently. I want to try this. Oh, let's try the other side, or let's do a different. And just suddenly the game just opens up after that first play massively. And again, I have the first expansion, not so interested in the second. If I get it, I get it, but I'm not looking for it. Just a bit more variety, a couple of extra powers. It just works super well. It's fun. It's these top 5 are just, no, this list, maybe it's on the continent, is the one exception, but these are just great fun. Quacks of Quedlinburg, 14, marvelous.
No, I mean, and it's worth saying, so many of these have been and could have been in my top 10. Easily.
For sure.
I'm not going to count up now, but at least 4 or 5 of them have been in my top 10 in the past. Easily. Okay, number 13 is the absolute epitome of a game that I love, but don't get to play, because I've owned it twice and had to trade it away twice because it doesn't get the playtime. Keyflower! Oh, my heart's desire. I love you so much. Oh, just so it's a worker placement that you can't go into the rant I got into last year, but it's a worker placement, and there are 3 different colors of workers that you use, but you might not own all the tiles that you put workers on, but you can also bid on them and then get them in your tiles. But other people can use the ones in your city, but that's okay because you get to use their workers at the end. And the real kicker of the thing is you have to match color with color. If there's blue workers down, you have to bid with and also use blue workers. You can't mix and match. Sometimes you can get an extra resource. There's loads of variability in the play. It's a charming theme. It's pastely drawn. I really love Keyflower. I don't know if I'm ever going to play it again, but I want to. So one day I'll find a new board game cafe and try and con some people into playing this. But I love this game. I love it. I love it. I love it. Keyflower 13.
My 13, I love and get to play loads because it's my number one. I will teach anybody at any given second, particularly if you've never played any games before. I will have Fuse. I will just have Fuse in my bag.
Wow.
It was down in my 30s, 40s. Last year, it came up to 18, and it's up again into 13.
97.
I don't care. It's so good. It's so good. And like, there are better games. I know that. It's a real time. Well, yeah, a real time, but you've got 10 minutes and only 10 minutes. Frantic, trying to defuse bombs. You're not. You're placing dice on cards and you're drafting them from the middle. But the fun, the good shouting, the exhilaration, the debate, and then you realize you've wasted time debating and suddenly people just grab stuff, but then that's not efficient either, and just this sheer tension going through the whole game. If you're completely brand new, I might teach without the timer just to get used to how some of the ways of putting dice on cards works, because some of them are stacks, some of them are pyramids, some of them you have to do math, some of them you have to do colors. So I might do it slowly, but most people I'll just go, let's just go. Here's the timer. Here's how cards work. I'll explain that first, and then just go 10 minutes. Let's go. Boom. And invariably, we'll play 2 or 3 times. Just will, because it's just an absolute blast. And I kept it down on my list because it's not an impressive design. It's nothing astounding. I get why people wouldn't like it or people wouldn't rate it, because there's not much to it. But I just every time have an absolute blast. Haha, bombs.
Number 12. You talked about a game that you play with everyone. These are the games you play with everyone. Ticket to Ride, all of them. Sure. You said a few episodes ago, there's no point being snobby about it. It's good. I am not snobby about Ticket to Ride. I've lost count of how many times and how many different versions of Ticket to Ride I've played. And I've played it with gamery people and I've played it with non-gamery people, and everyone can win, and everyone can win on merit. It's not a lucky game particularly. I mean, there is some because you've got random card draw, but not a lot. You're just making choices, and real choices, and it's a bit of a race, but there's also, set collecting, and there's also trying to, maximize your your hand and that kind of thing, and not race ahead when you could get a better card, and not waste your turn on just drawing engine cards every time. I don't have to try and explain Ticket to Ride, do I? Go out and play it. It's great. It's fun. It's for everyone. And it's nearly 20 years old
and getting cheaper.
And
I've noticed it dropping consistently below 30.
Sure.
So it's well within what I would consider an affordable range these days.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's great. Number 12, Ticket to Ride, all of them.
My number 12 will elicit an argument. It's the one on this list, and possibly the top 50, that you'll just go, no. This is my bonanza.
Concordia.
Century Eastern Wonders.
Oh, what's wrong with you?
It was 22 last year.
YouTube, do not let this man have a channel anymore.
It is there.
He knows nothing about board games.
No, but he knows his taste. And I think about it and it's dull.
Life.
And I play it and have a wonderful time. I taught it to new people this last year, and it wasn't just my old group that loved it, and so I felt good about it. Like new people I played it with, and they preferred Eastern Wonders over Spice Road, which is madness because
It's not
I
a
seem
better
to be
game.
the only person.
127. 127
It just
between
works for me.
Citadels and Carcassonne. What a load of rubbish.
It's just great. It is really good. It adds a spatial element. It's the same kind of trading that was happening in Spice Road. It's still spices. It's still the same concept. You're still fulfilling orders, but you have to move around and get upgrades, and it's just slightly more cerebral. But
You still talking?
Combine the two. Eastern Wonders, Spice Road, make a new game. They give you a rule set. My goodness, that's a joy. You cannot argue with that one.
No, I'd like to try.
Number 12, Century Eastern Wonders. Come at me, bro.
Wow. Okay. All right. Number 11, and the last of the list of the games that I love but don't get to play. I'd still got this one. I absolutely love it. I was really sad to see it not make the 10. Root.
Out of the top 10. Wow.
I know. Well, it's not in yours, but I know. It was tough. I looked at so many of the other 10. I went, oh, they're not as good as that. They're not as good as that. And do you know what? They're possibly not quite as good design. They're possibly not quite as good aesthetic. They're possibly not quite as good ergonomically. They're not quite as good. Oh, but I play them more.
Yeah.
And I haven't played Root probably in about 2 years. I've added expansions and I've never played them.
Right.
Root is an asymmetrical game where one person's playing a bunch of cats who have
I mean, what an opening sentence.
True though, isn't it?
It's what it is. It's what it is.
Sorry, I should take a step back. In a woodland realm with rats and mice and chicks and ducks and geese scurrying, the overlords were birds, because birds rule the roost. But then cats, Marquis de Cat, came in and took over the forest, and the birds are mad about it. And honestly, I was like, what is this theme? I don't care. And then the birds are trying to get their land back. The Woodland Alliance are fed up of the birds and the cats fighting, and they want to claim the land for themselves. And then one person is just a raccoon wandering around, serving his own purposes. Every single one plays a very different rule set. Yeah. A bit like Vast that I spoke about, I think two lists ago. The major difference between this and Vast is that there are some central rules. It's a bit like when we were talking ages ago about the difference between Imperial Settlers and Imperial Settlers Angels of the North. Don't like live in Newcastle. Empires of the North. Yeah. I preferred Imperial Settlers because it had that central thing. Everyone's going for the same target, or we will share at least one deck, or something that unifies us. We're not all playing totally different games. That's more extreme in Root and Vast than it is in the Imperial Settlers, I understand, but it is an extreme, because in Root you are still using the same deck of cards. You all are still trying to get to 30 points, unless the rules twist and actually it's the first person to get to own these 3 spaces. Yeah. But you can play a game with the cats and you do an engine builder and resource management building game, or you can play with the birds and play a programming area control game, or you can play as the Woodland Alliance and play a subterfuge sneaky game, or you can play the raccoon and do a pick up and deliver game, really, exploration sort of. And each one of them would probably make my top 20 games.
Sure.
Because they're charmingly delivered, because they are grippingly mechanical. There's really some interesting choices on every single one, and each one of them is in the box. and each one of them interacts with the others. It's just an absolute piece of magic. And I don't love plastic. I don't love minis. I don't love realistic art and things like. There's lots of stuff that I don't love in games. I really like wood. I like cardboard. I like screen printing. I like things with charm, but a little bit of twist. It's everything I like in games.
My number 11. I love it so much. Far more. I'm glad it's in your top 50. I am. But I get why I like it more than most people. I love it so much. I'm partly basing my master's thesis on it.
Oh, that one.
My number 11 is Tapestry.
Yeah.
I don't mind plastic. Good plastic. I don't mind figures and things. It just works for me. I love the ridiculousness of the asymmetry. I get that it's swingy. I get that there's a problem that in teaching, in whatever it might be. But as Rick mentioned this before, in the first one, maybe.
Number 50.
Oh, spot on. You're just pushing up one of 4 tracks. That's all you're doing. On your turn, you pay a couple of resources, you move up a track, it gives you something. Great. Might be military, might be exploration, might be science, might be technology and discovery. Invention, whatever the word is. I think it is technology, isn't it? Never mind. And it just really works. But then you've got your own civilization type that might be more militaristic. And so you get rewards each era. Once you've run out of actions that you're doing, we do an income phase and we check different things. And it might give you bonuses for whatnot. And depending on what you've built and done this, that, or the other, it gives you stuff. So it's just quite a simple, sleekly designed Civ sort of game. But the meanwhile, you've got a polyomino game going on the side. Like, it's a weird confluence of different things.
Yeah.
But it does the same thing as Lost Ruins of Arnak for me, in that I could, and I'm intending to, teach a group of people entirely mechanically. This is a mechanical game. I use entirely concrete language, nothing abstract, nothing thematic, nothing linked to everything else. Just you will, on your turn, you will move that there to move this here.
Grey resource. Yeah.
Exactly that. This is literally what it is. And I think you can have a good time. I do, because mechanically it's sound. It really is. And when you play the tapestry cards or the traps or whatever it might be, it's a functional, everything has a functional reason to exist. They're Arthur Miller characters. Everything's there for a purpose. Right?
Who was the fat man in Arthur Miller?
The little boy.
Okay,
who comes and tells you that one piece of exposition.
Sure.
Or, and I intend to do this as well, I'm testing between the two, but who cares? You can teach it entirely thematically. You could lean into this being an actual civilization game. It's not, as far as I'm concerned, but then I'm more mechanically driven. And people that love Civ games say it's not. But it's there. It really is. The art of Andrew Bosley. We've spoken about Carl Ferrin and D'Amico, who are much more stylized. Andrew Bosley, for beautifully clean, representative art, still touch cartoony, is my favorite. Is, I would say, best in the business personally.
Beth
for that
Sobel
style
as well is in that box.
Sure, I'll go with that.
Not quite as cartoony, but yeah.
Like it definitely has his own style, but it's closer to naturalistic. But it's a more almost watercolory. I don't know anything about art, as you can always tell. But it's beautiful. And so it just helps bring this thing to life. There's all the cards. When you start each era, you choose what kind of people you're going to be. You could be feudalistic. You could be innovative. You could be terraforming for that turn. You could be negotiators, whatever it is, whatever the cards that you've drawn. Again, could be swingy. I don't care. It's fun. Just changes how you play the next 4 or 5 turns.
Yeah.
It's
and it's, to be honest, it's that aesthetic that actually keeps it in our collection.
Yeah.
Not for me, but for my wife, who really thrives on a relationship to the board and the characters and the pieces, and needs that tactility and needs the aesthetic to drive her on. And I'm happy enough, because the game is solid and good enough. You're absolutely right. But if it was down to me, it probably wouldn't stay in our collection.
Sure.
But it's enough for her to just be like, no. We keep this one. We play this one. We love this one.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You know,
No.
If the game is solid underneath, which it is,
yeah,
then great. That's a win. That's a win.
Beautiful games are easier to play.
For sure.
So yeah, 20 to 11 complete. All that is left is 10 to 1. So we'll be back next time for the conclusion of the Too Loose Top 50. Oh, very exciting, 10 to 1. So do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you stay updated when these new videos come out. In the meantime, you can follow me on social media. Just search Win Some Lose Some on all the usual platforms and you will find me. I am buzzing. That's a word I've learned from up here. We hope you like these videos and you'll join us for the next one. I've been Dieter. It's been Rick. You've been watching Win Some Lose Some. We'll see you again. Bye.